Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoded. Today we're diving into a Form 8K filing, and trust me, it's not as boring as it sounds. We're talking about a company making a big money move, and you know what they say, follow the money. This filing reveals how Omega Healthcare Investors is raising a whole bunch of cash. What will they spend it on? And does their debt put them in hot water? It's all here, so let's decode. If breaking down complex corporate filings into easy to understand insights is your thing, make sure you subscribe and join our Discord community. The link is in the description. This document is called a Form 8K, and it's basically a company's way of saying, hey, something important happened, and we need to tell everyone right away. In this case, Omega Healthcare Investors, a real estate investment trust specializing in healthcare facilities, just made a pretty significant financial move. The big news is that on June 25, Omega completed a public offering of senior notes totaling $600 million. Omega borrowing a ton of money by selling promises to pay it back later with interest. These promises are called notes, and they're senior because they get paid back before other less important debts. The interest rate they're paying is 5.28% annually, and they have to pay back the total amount by 2030. That's the deal in simple terms. To keep things formal, there's a legal agreement called an indenture. It's between Omega and US Bank Trust Company, who acts like a referee, making sure Omega keeps its promises to the note holders. Here's another layer. These notes are guaranteed by one of Omega's subsidiaries, a daughter company called OHI Healthcare Properties Limited Partnership. And if other subsidiaries of Omega guarantee $100 million or more of unsecured debt, they'll be guaranteeing these notes too. A guarantee is basically a promise that if Omega can't pay, someone else will step in. Omega sold these notes to the public at 99 when 18% of their face value. In other words, people didn't pay full price for these notes. For every $1,000 note, investors paid about $999 note. Investors paid about $1991. This small discount is pretty standard in these kinds of deals. So what's Omega going to do with all this cash? They say they will use it for general corporate purposes, which could mean a lot of things, but specifically they mentioned paying off old debts and maybe buying more healthcare properties. It's like using a credit card to pay off other credit cards, hoping that new investments will bring in more money. These notes mature in 2030, and Omega will be paying interest on them twice a year. Basically, they've committed to regular payments for the next few years. Omega's notes are unsecured, meaning they're not backed by any specific assets. If Omega goes bankrupt, these note holders are in line with other general creditors. However, because they are senior, they get paid before any lenders who hold what's called subordinated or second-tier debt. However, if Omega takes on secured debt in the future, those lenders would get paid first before these note holders if Omega were to have trouble paying its bills. This is because secured debt is tied to specific assets that can be sold off to repay the loan. Also, these notes are structurally subordinated. What that means is that any money owed by Omega's daughter companies that didn't guarantee these notes will be paid before the parent company's debt. Omega has the option to buy back or redeem some or all of these notes before June 1, 2030, which they call the par call date. If they do, they'll have to pay the original amount plus an extra fee called a make-whole premium based on what the US Treasury bonds are paying out at that time. After that date, they can redeem the notes at the original price plus any unpaid interest. The legal agreement for these notes includes a few rules called covenants that Omega has to follow. These rules limit how much debt Omega can take on and what they can do with their assets. The agreement is designed to try to ensure that Omega doesn't take on so much debt that they can't pay back the notes. There are also standard events of default listed in the agreement. If Omega misses payments, breaks the rules, or goes bankrupt, the note holders can declare the whole amount due immediately. All this was done under a legal process called a shelf registration statement, which basically allows Omega to sell securities quickly when they need to. If you really want to dig into the details, the actual legal documents called the indenture and supplemental indenture are included as exhibits to this filing. You can find them linked as exhibits 4.1 and 4.2. So that's the story of Omega's $600 million debt offering. They're borrowing a lot of money to refinance old debts and potentially buy more properties. Everything you need to know is in this Form 8K, including the legal fine print. Tag now, let's take a step back and see what this all means. Omega is betting on the healthcare real estate market. In general, the bet has been good. As the population ages, they're assuming that more facilities will be needed. But That also means that if a recession hits hard, Omega could be in trouble. The fact that Omega has to sell these notes at a slightly discounted rate suggests some investors are wary, plus the covenants give Omega less wiggle room to navigate tough situations. Overall, it seems that Omega is taking a calculated risk. In fact, a look at their total liabilities compared to assets and equity show that the company might be over-leveraged. If the healthcare market remains steady, Omega could come out ahead, but if things go south, they could find themselves in a tight spot with a whole lot of debt to pay back. Alright, that's our analysis of Omega Healthcare Investors' latest move. What do you think about their decision to take on more debt? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, hitting that like button really helps us out, and subscribe for more corporate decoder videos. Also, be sure to check out the Discord community. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.